Welcome back to Morning Joe. It's 1:30, live look at the Capitol. Cloudy day in Washington. Joining us now, member of the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee's independent Senator Angus King of Maine. We're headed back to your great state. Angus, are you okay?
He actually, hold on, he actually looks like he's in front of your fireplace.
I know, that looks like my fireplace, actually.
God.
Please tell us how you're
Maine.
doing. I know you have a piece, and we're going to talk about Afghanistan, but we'd like to hear about how you're doing with your health. You say the vaccine saved your life.
Well, I had what they call a breakthrough case. I was vaccinated back in January, early February, and I don't know where I picked it up. It may have been at the Senate at that all-night session because 3 of my colleagues ended up testing positive on the same day a couple of weeks ago. But in any case, it was like the worst head cold you ever had. Cough, fever off and on, achy joints for 3 or 4 days. It was pretty bad. And here are the numbers. 99% of the people in the hospital today with COVID are not vaccinated. And well over 90% of the people like myself who got vaccinated and then got the breakthrough case haven't had to go to the hospital. And, you know, I don't want you to spread it too widely and, you know, don't tell anybody, but I'm 77 years old and I have a history of respiratory issues. And so, you know, I think there's a reasonable chance I could have been one of those people you saw in the hospital with the mask on, and it could have been, you know, very serious. It was a scary experience. But, you know, here I am. Somebody said, how do you feel yesterday? I said, well, I don't feel like climbing Mount Washington, but I didn't feel like climbing Mount Washington before. So, you know, that's okay.
Just do it in your car, Senator. You get one of those bumper stickers. Senator, so what is it like in Maine? We know you had a high vaccination rate there. A lot of people are getting their shots. So what is the state of coronavirus in Maine? Because there's a lot of concern in schools as those have opened up now, pediatric cases on the rise. What does it look like where you are?
Well, we've had an upsurge just like everybody else, but here are I think the most startling numbers, and I just saw these a week or two ago. In terms of deaths per 100,000, in other words, per capita, our rate is 1/4 of South Dakota's and 1/3 of Florida and Texas. And South Dakota is a pretty good comparison because they're similar states, rural states, a couple of large towns. And the only real difference is the political leadership. Our governor took this very seriously, took a lot of heat, frankly, for imposing mask mandates and curfews and those kinds of things early on. And of course, we all know in South Dakota they haven't done those kinds of things. And so it's tough. We're having an upsurge, but relative to the rest of the country, we're doing quite well. The problem politically, and I used to be a governor, is it's hard to demonstrate something that doesn't happen. If you put a curfew on and your bar is closed, you know the hit you're taking. What you don't know is that curfew may have saved your sister's life or your grandmother's life or something, and that's hard to measure. That's why I go back to those per capita figures, which I think are pretty revealing and indicate that taking this seriously from the beginning has paid off here in Maine.
And Maine's vaccination rate is up around 72%, which puts it near the top of the list of states in the country. Senator, let's talk a little foreign policy. We're so glad to hear you're doing better. You wrote an op-ed for Time magazine titled, "Let's Not Rush to Judgment About the Withdrawal from Afghanistan." You write this: "Though I believe mistakes were made, the rush to assign blame to the president and his team is unfair at this point. There'll be plenty of time this fall for the relevant congressional oversight committees to determine what went wrong and right. In their push to assign blame to Biden, the critics largely ignore this elephant in the room, that it wasn't our job to stop the Taliban in Kandahar or plan the defense of Kabul with the few American troops then remaining in the country. That was the responsibility of the Afghan government, and they didn't do it. The problem, of course, is that layered complexity or waiting for more information doesn't make for the most compelling television or analysis, but this doesn't make it any less important that we search for it for ourselves and for the men and women who served, who deserve clear answers to difficult questions." So, Senator King, let's walk through that a little bit. What do you believe were some of the mistakes were made in terms of maybe starting evacuations earlier, abandoning Bagram Air Base too early? You've heard those criticisms. And what's a best case scenario for how things turn out in Afghanistan?
general comment based on your interview with Jen Psaki just before I came on. I think I counted, and the word complicated was used 4 or 5 times. And this is complicated. A perfect example is I was one of those who was really aggressive back in May and June about starting the evacuation of the translators, of the people who had helped us, the so-called SIVs, and really pushing and making speeches on the floor and calling the White House and all of those kinds of things. Then on June 25th, the president of Afghanistan directly asked President Biden not to start that evacuation because he was afraid it would demoralize the country and lead to the collapse of the government, which in fact happened eventually. But the point I'm only making is that it's a complicated decision. And there are all of these things. Closing Bagram, again, is another example. I've been one that has been critical of that. On the other hand, it would have taken another probably 5,000 troops to defend Bagram, and it was further from Kabul than the airport, and it would have provided an additional outlet. But again, it was a kind of judgment call in terms of putting our troops in harm's way versus what was the most effective way to do this massive evacuation. I think one of the most important questions we're going to be looking for is, when did we know how fast this was going to happen? In other words, a lot of the discussion was it would be months and years before the Taliban could take over, that the government would hold out. And then, of course, it happened in like 7 or 8 days. So that's a question we're going to have to examine. And there are going to be hearings coming up next week in various committees. I know Armed Services already has one scheduled. Foreign Relations, I suspect, will do some work in intelligence. But I believe in ready, aim, fire, not ready, fire, aim. And there's been so much blame placed before we really know the facts.
Well, right. And again, people comparing it to Saigon like 2 days after the first day of evacuations. Of course, there's an example. You're talking about how quickly things go. There's an example of a huge difference where this fell in 7 days in Afghanistan. In Saigon, we get out in 73. Saigon fell in 75. But you talk about counterfactuals, and Jonathan Lemire, it is important. You heard the senator talking about the counterfactuals about, like, for instance, a curfew. It's hard to say what the counterfactual would be if you didn't put the curfew in place. Here, we had invested for 20 years in an Afghan government and an Afghan army. We were getting out, and you had the president of Afghanistan say, do not start removing all the interpreters now. Don't make a mad rush for the exits, because if you do, confidence in the government will drop, confidence in the army will drop, and we'll collapse. And if you're leaving, if the United States is leaving, and this is the government that's staying behind to fight the Taliban, you got to give deference to the president of Afghanistan. Yes, we know what happened at the end of the day, but all of these people squawking on Twitter right now, every 15 seconds attacking Joe Biden for listening to the president of Afghanistan at that point, saying, don't do that. It's very easy to do that. It is extraordinarily complicated to figure out what would have happened. We will never know. Right. But we do know that the people that were staying behind to fight the Taliban, who told us they were going to fight the Taliban, said, please don't start this mass withdrawal because it'll cause the country to collapse faster.
And the White House has said they did pay deference to the Afghan president's request. And, of course, they say the quick collapse underscored and reaffirmed their decision to leave in the first place. Because what good would another year or 2 years or 5 years have been if the government was going to collapse the way it did anyway? Senator, though, I wanted to ask you about what is still in Afghanistan. And there are concerns about, especially as we approach the anniversary of September 11th, about whether Afghanistan will be a safe haven for terrorists again. You remember the Intelligence Committee. We obviously saw that devastating terror attack a week or so back that claimed more than a dozen American lives. What do you make of the threat posed by ISIS-K or other groups in Afghanistan? What threat do they pose to the West and the United States in particular?
Well, I think they do pose a threat. I don't think we can ignore that. I don't think we can say this is, we've done it and there's no more terrorist threat. On the other hand, there's a lot of sort of ungoverned territory in the world where terrorists can plot against us, whether it's Yemen or Mali or parts of Syria. So I remember being in an armed services committee and hearing this haven for terrorists argument, and I thought that's the domino theory of the 21st century. That's the sort of all-purpose theory that justifies us sending troops practically everywhere. And I think there is, we can't minimize it. But the question is, what would have been accomplished by another 20 years in Afghanistan? And these terrorist groups we've got to continue to be ready to combat them. I do worry that we're sort of pivoting toward competition with Russia and China and acting like the terrorist threat is over. It's not. Those characters on September 11th killed 3,000 people. They would have killed 3 million if they could have, and that's my nightmare, is them getting a hold of weapons of mass destruction, particularly of a nuclear weapon.
Senator, let me ask you about this $3.5 trillion spending plan being debated in Congress right now. Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, your colleague, has said it's time to hit pause on this conversation. He's never going to go for $3.5 trillion. He'd like it to be, 1.5 or something in that range. Chuck Schumer, when asked about this yesterday, the majority leader said, no, we are going full speed ahead, was his term. We want to keep going forward. We think getting this done is so important. Now, of course, given the thin margins in the Senate, he can't go full speed ahead without Joe Manchin. How does this play out?
Well, I think it's going to play out with a lot of discussions for sure. But, you've got to think about this. One thing that hasn't come through in the discussion, everybody always talks about a $3.5 trillion plan. It's over 10 years. So whatever the size of the plan we're talking about is, it's over 10 years. It's not a one-year huge investment. The second thing to think about on this, and I look back into the middle of the 20th century, the two most important investments in our country that led to the boom of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s were the interstate highway system, classic hard infrastructure, and the GI Bill, which sent millions to college and really built the middle class in this country. So, those are sort of two sides of the coin. Today, for example, childcare. Everybody's looking for workers. Here in Maine, they're hiring, there's a hiring sign in front of every business. If you're a single mom or a single dad and have a 7 and a 9-year-old, if you can't get childcare, or if the school isn't operating because of COVID, you can't go to work. And so that's part of the infrastructure that's necessary in order to put Americans to work. So what I'm going to do is take the pieces one at a time, look at them. Are there places where they can be adjusted and trimmed? Does it have to be the size that the president initially proposed? The other thing about this plan that I think ought to deserve some commentary is it's paid for. And that's something new around in Washington. The very fact that we're debating how to pay for it rather than just putting it on the credit card, I think is progress. There's going to be debate about some of those provisions, particularly revenue provisions. But I think that's a worthwhile discussion. So it'll be a good, solid discussion. Joe Manchin doesn't get pushed around. He's going to do what he thinks is right. I think in the end we're going to come to some agreement that will work for the American people.
All right, Senator Angus King.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. We greatly
Be well.
appreciate it, Senator.
Great to have you on.
Always a pleasure.
All right, take care.